Okay, we'll call to order this meeting of the Board of Selectmen for September 23rd. We're going to move our executive session to the end of the meeting where we have another executive session already scheduled. So we'll begin tonight, if that's agreeable to the board.
Yep.
And we will start tonight in open session with approval of meeting minutes of August 26th.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of August 26, 2014.
Second that motion.
Any changes? Discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of current payroll and vendor warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Future meeting dates. We're meeting on October 7th and October 21st, but we're also meeting this Thursday evening with the planning board. We're posted for 6:30 to vote on the housing production plan, hopefully.
Okay.
We're posted for 6:30, but they have a few other items on the agenda, such as a public hearing on their town meeting articles. So I'm not sure what time we'll actually start, but we're posted for 6:30. We'll probably start later than that.
Okay.
And the 7th and 21st still agreeable to everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Citizen Speak. Do we have anyone tonight who would like to address the board at Citizen Speak? Okay, then seeing none, the next item on our agenda is a presentation by the Council on Aging. Good evening.
Good evening.
Sure.
While you're getting seated, let me just mention my sister, Maureen Conlon, is a member of the Board of Directors of the Council on Aging, so I'll just make that disclosure on the record. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Thanks. So I'm Mike Balfour, and I'm an associate member of the COA, and I live at 19 Lantern Lane, for the record. So we're here tonight really to start, I think, a process of what I call righting a wrong. But first, we thank Selectmen for taking the time to listen to us tonight and hopefully to read the presentation we gave you. And I also must thank Mary Ann and my fellow board members for their help in this endeavor, putting together these papers. Second, before I tour the written presentation that we gave you, it's obviously not a request for any specific appropriation. It's just really to put this issue out there for when the budget season comes around, as it will. And probably to your relief, I'm not going to go through a presentation again, but rather I'm going to try and provide some background. Having said that, the wrong that we feel we should put right is the underfunding of the COA for its provision of services for the approximately 6,000 seniors in Milton. We've built a senior center within the last, I guess it was 2001, you said, but we haven't adequately funded its activities. It's sort of like buying a car and then not buying the gas to drive it. So when joining the board, I was actually surprised to see what the low level of funding was for the COA, very surprised. And I assumed that this was likely due to the COA's appropriation not keeping pace with inflation. But I was wrong about that. It was just low. And we've been shortchanging our seniors since at least the year 2000. The evidence of that, we appropriate per senior for our COA at least, which is $40 approximately per senior, at least $15 or approximately 30% less than other comparable towns. And a typical senior homeowner who's paying, give or take, $8,000 a year in property taxes gets very little for that money in terms of the COA. So what's the consequence of this underfunding? The COA depends on charity for about 40% of its expenses. And obviously that's continuing concern that some of these sources of charitable funds may not always be available. Moreover, although its funding over the years has increased approximately in line with consumer prices, its largest, the COA's largest expense items have increased a lot more. Consumer prices have, over the last 10 years have gone up something in the upper 30s in total percentage. But the two largest expense items for the COA, gas, has gone up 150%, maybe 140% since I wrote that, since it's gone down a little bit. Electricity and heat about 50%. So the conclusion that it's already inadequately funded for the services it currently provides. But the problem is actually bigger than that, because our master plan committee has recognized that demand for the COA services will increase as the number of seniors increases and they become more active and seek additional services. So a significant increase in the appropriation is essential both for the town, I think, to be made attractive, and also in fairness to its seniors. Just as an example, when I was a specific request, increasing the appropriation to the average amount in the comparable towns would cost about $15 a year for the average property tax payer in Milton. And when you think about that, that's pretty much a rounding error on the town budget, or the town's equivalent of the loose change in our sofas. So I would hope that it's not beyond the ability of the committees who work on this to squeeze that amount out of the budget with this and future years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, anything you'd like to add?
Now, Katie, you know me. Of course, there's something I'd like to add. First of all, I'd like to start with good news. On Saturday, November 8th, from 9 a.m. to noon, the Friends of the Council on Aging are hosting a free community-wide shred day at the Senior Center parking lot as a gesture of goodwill to let people get to the Senior Center, hopefully come inside, have a cup of coffee, bring your boxes that you need shredded. They'll take them out of your car for you. They've hired a professional company. And I think it's just a wonderful way for people to learn about the COAs. So they just wanted me to announce that again, Saturday, November 8th, 9 a.m. to noon. And we hope to welcome many of the residents. So I was very glad when Michael Belf came on our board. We have a fabulous board, but Michael came with a little bit of extra expertise, being a selectman in another town. So
That would be former selectmen.
Former selectman, I'm sorry, I take that back. So we spent quite a bit of time going over this. I think what became apparent is that the COA really needs to look at maybe reorganizing how we're going to address the needs of the seniors. Most pressing need is a full-time van driver. Katie being on the warrant committee, Tom being on the warrant committee, you have heard me come before you and ask if this is a possibility. And what happens is, I'm always told, you know, as with everything, there's not a lot of money. You know, we don't want to hire another benefited position. And I hate to throw anybody under the bus, trust me, but I'm just, after 21 years, at the point where I don't really understand that. I know we just hired I'm sorry Bill's here, but a painter for the Consolidated Facilities Committee. I know it's important to maintain buildings, but it's also important to transport our seniors to critical medical appointments. The numbers are just growing. People are living longer. Our oldest senior is 103, God bless her. I go back to when Rick Neely told me how to solve this problem, and I didn't listen to him. A senior calls, they say, I need chemo 5 days a week. I have never been able to do it. I never will. How do you tell them you can't help them? How do you tell them? But we're at the point now where funding is too low. Michael referred to the high cost of gas and the sheer number of people who are requesting the service. These are the seniors who supported overrides in this town, who pay exorbitant property taxes, and really, police, fire, DPW, we all need these services. But they're not at the stage where they're using the schools, they're using the parks, things like that. But what they're saying to me, and especially the boomers, is we want to have evening programs, we want weekend programs. Other towns that we compare ourselves to, Hingham, Needham, all have these type of programs. We can't do it here in Milton. We're short-staffed. Last Wednesday, we had a program on Assisted Living 101. You know, we packed the big room with people. But truly, it's myself and Nancy Stewart, you know, who are there doing it. They want to see programs on Saturdays. People are working longer, and they want to see different types of activities. We don't have the means to do it now. Transportation has always been the biggest issue for our seniors. They're not, you know, you don't want them to drive, but you have to give them a way to get from point A to point B. We're back where we were almost 5 years ago now, having to prioritize between medical, grocery shopping, and getting people to the senior center. We are in desperate need of a full-time band driver. I don't even know how else to say it. It's something that I think we owe the seniors of our community for all the support they've given and continue to give. But as Michael said, you know, this has been for me, it's been a 21-year dream. 40% of our budget, as you know, especially transportation, is through fundraising. Golf tournaments, the walk Maureen did last year. But if these pieces don't come together, and God bless the Copeland family, but every year they'll let it come with the stipulation, this is a one-time, you know, you can't count on it every year, but thankfully we've had it for the last 15 years. But I think it's time for the seniors to get a little more services, and the main one has to be transportation. The senior housing in the town has limited services with a fee. Just for an example, Home Inc. doesn't provide any transportation services. So, you know, the burden falls on the Council on Aging, and it should. I mean, we're a department of the town, they're residents of the town, but we can't do it the way we've been doing it any longer. 40% fundraising. I'm at the, you know, end of my career there, and I think somebody who comes on, you're not going to find another person who's going to take on a job where 40% of her budget has to be fundraised. It's just, it's literally almost impossible to do. You know, so I hope you'll take a close look at it, give me some ideas on what I can do. I mean, I'm certainly willing to go before the Warrant Committee, the Personnel Board, but again, we have been that route many times, and unfortunately, the position has never come to fruition in the town. So thank you for your allowing us to come in tonight, for reading our report, and any suggestions you can give us or help you can give us would be greatly appreciated.
You in comments?
I have a
Mary Ann or
question.
Michael?
How much money do you need to get a full-time?
A full-time van driver with benefits. I can't address the benefits, Dennis, but it would be about $20 an hour, so you're probably talking $37,000, $38,000. The town right now provides 17 hours of van service. You know,
17 hours a week,
a week.
and you need 40 hours at least?
We have 5 part-time van drivers. We have the vans out there, you know, as many days as we can. So 17 hours would help with this, but we need a full-time van driver. And in order to make it an attractive position that somebody would want, you would definitely have to offer benefits. You can't say to somebody, you know, 40 hours, 37.5, but it's a I don't know what the correct term would be, non-funded position, like an employee at will. Nobody would be interested in a position like that.
So on top of all your fundraising, you'd still need another 30 grand?
Well, Dennis, to be quite honest, I want to cut down on the
No, but
fundraising.
assuming you still have to
absolutely,
fundraise
yep.
the same amount, you still need 30,000 more?
Yep.
At least?
At least. It needs to be a full-time position, so that it's in the town plan. Frankly, I was surprised how much attention this got in the master plan. You know, I met with them a few times, and then when the plan came out, I figured the Council on Aging and Elders would be somewhere, you know, on the last page, and, you know, Daphne brought that up at all the meetings I attended, that, you know, the need for elder services. The biggest boom for the boomers is going to be 2020. Trust me, you're not going to know what hit you when all these people come forward. You know, we're seeing it now. We're seeing, you know, the calls. Well, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? You know, and if I don't have the answer, you know, certainly they're going to ask, you know, the elected officials, why can't you do that? So I think, you know, fundraising will continue. Fundraising's never a given, but there needs to be a full-time van driver. There's just no question about it.
Yeah, it's clearly a problem. I mean, as you know, we've level funded the town side budgets for
Right.
5 years now. So basically, nobody's got an increase other than just covering basic payroll increases. And that's not even covering steps and lanes, that's just covering. So basically, everybody's budget is shrunk.
But there have been departments, John, that have gotten new positions, right?
There have been some, yeah, but on the town side, not many. We've added police, but that was, we had a plan to do that at zero cost because they came out of the overtime budget because there was a true need for it. But other than that, I think there's been a
Consolidated facilities.
Consolidated facilities had
The
some.
painter, but that offsets the general expense, because to hire a painter at prevailing wage on the outside, to have a painter in-house,
Right.
the costs
Right.
lessen in the general expense line.
I mean, clearly there's a need for it. I mean, there's no arguing that. Yeah, when you look at the statistics and the projections that we were looking at on the master plan committee in terms of the percentage
Right.
of our population that's going to be over 65 over the next 10 years, it's staggering.
And I think that might be part of why the master plan identified it, because these people are going to come forward, and, the town has to be prepared. There has to be a plan in place to, address their needs, their growing needs, and their different needs. The needs of the 65-year-old is so different from the needs of the 95-year-old, the nice little lady who says, may I please have a ride on the van? And then you have the 65-year-old saying, I demand an exercise class on Saturday morning, I'm paying taxes. And that's what we're hearing. I mean, it's like night and day, and it is. It's just going to continuously, increase as that population ages.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard Chronicle I think it was last week. It's actually the gentleman speaking at the library gala, who has Alzheimer's.
Yes, I'm going to hear him Thursday, actually. Yes,
And
incredible.
so they did a whole show on Alzheimer's, and said, with the aging population and the increasing incidence of Alzheimer's, if you project it out, it's gonna bankrupt Medicare. It's just gonna bankrupt everything.
Getting
it's
old
scary.
and ill is not for the faint of heart, trust me.
That's very scary.
But it's probably going to be more even than the numbers, because, I mean, if the housing plan and the various projects for living units, for want of a better phrase, that will suit downsizing seniors, which I think is one of the things that most people want to do in town. I mean, I'd certainly be interested. Then that's going to be more seniors again. I mean, the less seniors in town now than we might expect, because there's no place for them to live, right? Part of it.
Yeah.
Right. Just to clarify the numbers, so my $15 on the tax bill represented $100,000
Of increase.
in the budget. And I think if you want 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week at $20, that's $40,000 a year.
And
Plus benefits,
50% more for benefits.
10,000 maybe? Maybe.
Probably 50% more for benefits.
Really? 50? So $60,000 a year right there.
But I think, to what
Yeah.
Michael said, in the realm of things, it's not huge. We're less than 1% of the total town budget. But then let's think about how much the seniors put into that town budget. Our town budget is mainly residential tax base. And the seniors are a big part of that. So, as much as we say we level fund everybody, we do to a point. And, I just think this is too important of an issue to, keep pushing it aside, and I don't know what else we can do. I think you're going to get to the point where, if the services aren't in place, I think we're looking maybe at an override in the next year or two. Are these people going to be there to support it? They always have been. I can tell you that the seniors of this town have supported every override. They come out, they vote for it. You might think they don't, but they do, because they feel vested in the town. And when you look at what a wonderful community we have, I dare say it's thanks to the sacrifices that some of these seniors have made that Milton is the wonderful community it is. And I think it behooves us now to help them when they need it most. And, that's why we're looking to you to see if you can help us.
Well, all the town departments are important, and yours is one of the smaller budgets, and you don't always get the recognition that, that is needed for this department, because you do serve a very big population. So something for us to think about as we start budget season, and maybe have some follow-up discussions with you about.
Okay.
I'm sure the warrant committee might be interested in hearing this presentation as well. Might be a good idea for you to go into and talk with the warrant committee.
Is the 5,700 on here the number of seniors that the Council on Aging is serving?
No, that's the total number in the
okay,
town.
okay.
Right.
The total number we served last year, because I have to keep records from the state that you would not believe, was 2,175, unduplicated. That can be something as simple as making a phone call, where do I go for help,
Right.
but we have to keep those records.
Okay.
So it's a growing segment of the town, and
I
and
understand, it is.
a group that really needs some help from all of you.
Well, thank you very much for
Okay.
Thank you.
your presentation and
Thank
for
you.
talking with us
Thank
tonight.
you for your time.
Yeah.
Okay, we are on now to the police patrolman interviews. We have Chief Wells here with us tonight. We have 2 candidates for lateral police officer positions. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This has been an interesting night.
Has been.
2 candidates who watched the entire ceremony outside, and I said, we don't begin most. With such fanfare. It's only because we're interviewing tonight, so this is, as you see, I have before you, this has been about a 5-month process. That, was run by Deputy Chief King. As you've learned from the most senior to the newest member of the board, that the process and the expense that we go through with recruit hiring from a civil service list is very cumbersome and expensive. One of the things that had happened here is that, and part of it is a credit to the people you hire and you appoint. The other thing is the demand of people that we have that they want to take other agencies. And when I became chief 7.5 years ago, we had just lost 10 veteran officers. We lost 5 in one swoop to Boston, state police, federal agencies. And so we have a very young department, experience-wise. And so I came to Anne Marie several months ago when we had a couple of openings, one from one who did not make it through the police academy, the second created by the MOU that you created, which brought the second SRO into the high school. We engaged in looking at bringing in 2 lateral transfer officers. The 2 candidates before you tonight have a cumulative 30-some-odd, almost 35 years of experience. One is a detective commander. He's a sergeant detective in a department on the South Shore. The other is a female officer who is in a very interactive community policing unit in another South Shore department. The benefit to us here is not just we're going to get 2 police officers who can go to work right away and we garner from their experience, but this is a no cost to you. This is a win-win. There's no training. We're not going to have to go anywhere. I told Emery we learned last week that Quincy is going to take one of our newer officers in the next month or so. The waiting list in the Boston Police Academy as of Monday is 100 officers for the next class. There's a 100-person waiting list. So I'm very happy and grateful that you allowed us to do this. It's not the normal way we hire, but this is a way for a quick infusion of 2 very skilled veteran officers who bring a lot to the table. So with that, I'll begin. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Chief, can I just one question? You said one of our patrolmen is going to Quincy, is that?
We just found out. That'll be coming, I don't know exactly when, but it's going to be, I'd say, within a month. And we just got that from the city.
That's a lateral move as well.
That's a lateral move as well. The one thing is we took him as a lateral move, so he didn't cost, you didn't pay to train him. So that's one, the sad thing is he's a resident of town. We know him very well. I feel bad that he's leaving, but I've learned it's a business, and that's just
So will that create another vacancy?
another vacancy. Yes, that's when I called Boston just to get an idea, and it's 100 deep, the waiting list for the January class. So we're able to fill these tonight, and I'm ready to bring the first candidate when you are, if you don't have any further questions.
Oh, that sounds great.
This is Tracy Mannion from the Plymouth Police Department. Ms. Katie Collin, the chair.
Tracy, thank you for coming in tonight.
Tracy, nice
Tom
to meet you.
Hurley.
Tom Hurley.
Nice to meet you.
Anne Marie Fagan, the Memphis, the
Hi.
town administrator. Just keep right on. This is Paul Rizzi, the brains of the operation, and Mr. Desko.
That's good to know.
She is.
Tracy.
Well, Tracy, thank you for coming in tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We want to give you an opportunity to have an opening statement if you'd like to, and if not, we have a few questions that then we can delve right into. And we'll go around the table and we'll just ask
Okay.
a couple of questions each that the town administrator's prepared for us. So we're always all set when we have some prepared questions to start with. But if you'd like to give us an introduction to yourself, say a few words, that'd be great.
Sure. My name's Tracy Mannion. I'm 43 years old, and I have 3 children. They're 13, 12, and 8, and are a handful. I've been a career police officer for 17 years. During that time, I worked both the day shift and the evening shift. I am currently a member of the mountain bike unit and have been for 3 years. In my off time, I play soccer, which, much to my chagrin, my body doesn't want me to do it anymore. I also am very active in the community. There are 2 specific projects that are kind of near and dear to my heart. One is something called Score for a Cure, which is a weekend-based charity tournament for breast cancer survivors and research. The company, they do a whole weekend of soccer, basically play soccer games and give the money to the charities, and they give financial assistance and aid to women who have gone through breast cancer, chemotherapy, radiation, and basically care bags, which provide them with comfort and care during the course of their treatments. And the other one is, I'm actually a founding member and on the executive board of something called Liam's Run. It's a 5K road race that we do the last Sunday in September. It's actually this coming Sunday. And it basically raises money to help families who lose children. And I write the checks out to the families. We actually help with counseling services. We help with financial aid if they need it in any way, burial services, clergy members, things like that.
I think you may have anticipated a couple of our questions, but we'll go through them anyway. All right, so the first one is, you've been a police officer for a long time. Why did you choose a career as a police officer?
It was kind of something that I actually fell into. I was looking to, I was always interested in law enforcement. It was something that always fascinated me. And it was something that wasn't necessarily a plan of mine as a child, but it's just something that I kind of fell into and really liked and thought I was good at. And I kind of just had a passion for it, and it's something I still enjoy doing.
Okay, thank you.
So this is kind of our chance to grill you, as shoes on the other foot a little bit, so it's
Okay.
fun. So my question is, what made you interested in leaving your current job and applying for a position with the Milton Police Department?
Milton's actually a pretty great community. I've been up here a few times for different parades and things with my children, and it's got a great small town feel to it, which I like. But it's actually close enough to the city to provide some diversity, which I think is fabulous, both professionally and personally, for me and my kids. The department itself has a great reputation. It's something that I'd like to be a part of.
Tracy, can you describe any police initiatives you took while you were at your police department?
I think the biggest one, it's not necessarily, it's police related as a result of my friend Matt, his son Liam was the one that passed away, was when he lost his son. A friend of mine and ours, like a coworker, thought it would be a great idea to just really involve the community in helping other people, because when you lose a child, you forget everything, how to pay your bills and go to grocery shopping. So it was something that we became very actively involved in with the community, and to ensure that the police department is very involved in it as well, and the fire department is involved in it, and we get the whole community across the board involved in that specific endeavor. And it's like 900,000 people come out. And it's something that every year we help the families too. We have letters and a website that we ensure that people realize where the money's going.
Thank you. That's good.
And the next question is, what do you think is a major contemporary issue facing local police agencies, and what can be done about it?
A local contemporary issue, I think across the board for me in modern policing, is community-based policing and the philosophy. I think that's how I look at community-based policing and how I like to police. It's very important to me to just be active in that way, and I like to consider myself to be fair-minded and compassionate, and to treat people in the community in that way. And oftentimes you see in some bigger departments, you don't always see that. And I think here, it's because it's smaller base, and the philosophy in and of itself is community-oriented. I think it's something that would be a great fit.
I'm going to skip question 5 because you already answered it better than I could have anticipated. So I'll go into question number 6. What is the most difficult situation you faced as a police officer, and how did you deal with it?
The most difficult recently was the death of my friend Greg. I'll try to start crying. Sorry. We went to the academy together, and it was just really sad when he died. I'm sorry.
Was he a police officer?
Yeah.
He was killed in the line of duty 6 months ago.
In April 1st. And I was there, I heard it on the radio. And I just didn't know what to do. Like, the weird part about it is I'm always, as a police officer, you always try to be in control. And you always try to I don't know, just take control of every situation. In that moment when I heard it, I literally was like, what do I do? And then your instincts take over and you go from there. And then it was going through the process of his death and all that, just trying to get through that as best you can and taking control of that. And the second, I think probably the second most was 6 weeks later, my niece died of a heroin overdose. So in keeping with that, I kind of did the police role to help my family members through it. Those are the two most difficult.
Sorry to hear that. Tracy, if you're selected for this position, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Chief.
I wouldn't take that away from you. In 5 years, I would like to think that I would be a fully integrated member of the police department, be really proactive and a productive member of the department, and be, here with strong ties to the community and be involved in community activities here.
Sounds good.
We have no further questions, Tracy, but we want to give you an opportunity to ask us any questions or to make a closing statement or tell us anything more about yourself that you might like to share.
I'm sorry that I almost lost it there.
Perfectly all right.
Very recent, very
yeah.
understandable.
He was a good friend. I don't really have any questions, I don't think. But I thank you for your time and for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Tracy, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have done that other way.
That's all right. That's all right.
Hi, Bart. Katie Conlon.
Anne Marie, Mr. Tom Hurley.
Dennis Cohane.
Pleasure to meet you.
How you doing?
Hi, Bart. Thanks for coming in tonight.
Sure, thank you.
We want to give you an opportunity to maybe give an opening statement and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we have a series of questions that we'll each take turns asking a couple of questions.
Sure. My name's Bart Forsese. I'm a sergeant detective with the Hull Police. I got on that job full-time in 1998, and I've worked in all aspects of police work, from a foot patrol to bicycles. I actually started out in the department as a seasonal walking the foot beat and so forth, and now I'm a detective and I run a drug unit right now in my department, and very active with that. And I went to Curry College here in Milton, graduated from Don Boston Technical High School in Boston. I grew up in the city, and I currently live in Braintree with my wife and 2 children. My wife's Susan.
Okay, well, thank you. The first question is, you've been a police officer, obviously, for a long time. Why did you choose a career as a police officer?
It's just something I've always wanted to do ever since I can remember. All I wanted to do was be a policeman. And from as long as I can remember, that's just what I wanted to do. And we'd go into the donut shops as a little boy, and I'd just see the policeman in there, and that's what I want to do, ironically.
Go to donut shops or be the police officer?
Believe it or not, they hang out there when I was little. They don't so much anymore, maybe.
Okay, what made you decide, what made you interested in leaving your current job in Hull and applying for a position with the Milton Police Department?
I wanted somewhere bigger. I think that my department's a good job to start with, but it's small. And I think that there's a lot more opportunity for advancement and a lot more opportunity to make rank. I've went pretty far in my department as a sergeant detective, but I feel that I like Milton's proximity to the city of Boston. I live, like I said, in Braintree, and I feel that I could do well here, and I think I could grow here. And it's still a small town. It's still not a big city, and I like that it's a much larger department with more people and more to do.
Yep. And certainly because of our proximity to Boston, we have some unique policing problems here that you wouldn't find in other communities, I think, for a small community.
Sure.
Bart, can you describe any police initiatives you've been involved with at your police department?
I started the Nantasket Beach Car Show back in, I believe, 2005. And initially it was to benefit the Jimmy Fund, but as it progressed, we changed the sponsorship to Cops for Kids with Cancer, which is a nonprofit organization, and what we did is we had a car show on Nantasket Beach. And what made this show unique from other shows all around the Northeast is that we actually blocked the road and had the classic cars park on the road, and all the people that showed up paid a fee to have their car showed, and then people would walk around and donate to the Jimmy Fund or now to Cops for Kids with Cancer. And this year, in 2014, it was the 10th year, and now I'm having help from the Hull Rotary, which started a couple years ago, but prior to that, me and my chief were pretty much running the whole thing ourselves, and I think that was a good thing to do for the community. I think that everyone's touched by cancer. My family's definitely been touched by cancer, so to have the opportunity to do that and to see it grow from 200 cars the first year to 500 or 600 cars now, it's just known all through the car community at the shows in the summertime right on Nantasket Beach.
As I read through Bart's background, I noticed all the cars. And then I finally read the charity of it.
Yeah, I have a passion for the
The
automobile.
1988 Viper sounds really interesting. That must be a nice car.
It's fun, sure.
Bart, what do you think is a major contemporary issue facing local police agencies, and what can be done about it?
I think that obviously domestic violence is the forefront of everyone's problems. I think now we're starting to look at handling not just the arrest, but handling the victim with risk assessment forms and being able to go back and have reports generated and go back and see how they're doing, and having liaisons to the courts go in and find out how the woman or the man is doing, the person that's been battered. And I feel that that's a hot topic, and it's been around since mankind, and as of late it's been in the news, and it's constantly on the forefront. But I think that at least in Plymouth County right now, we've done a lot to try to stop the cycle of violence and try to solve the problem. If that answers.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, I'm going to pass on question 5 because it's a question about charities in the community. I think you answered that very well. So I will ask question number 6, which is, what is the most difficult situation you've faced as a police officer, and how did you deal with it?
It's difficult to deal with situations in every job, but in a police job, it's difficult to sometimes communicate to the public. I've had the ability as a walking policeman and then as a bicycle policeman, and it to be a small community, to be very approachable, and with my first name being Bart, then people come up and I'm very approachable, and that's helped break down the walls or the separation. I think that police can get away from that with the cruiser, not the foot beats years ago, and we're back to the community police and walking the beat. So I think that was a difficult thing for most people, to walk up to a policeman and feel comfortable. But I personally think that I've dealt with that very well, just being accessible to the public in a small community like Milton, or where came from, to be accessible and to be able to talk to people and to help them. We're problem solvers before anything else. We solve problems.
That's certainly one of my pet projects. Working with Chief Wells to try and get more foot patrols, especially in the commercial districts, and hopefully one of these days we can figure out a way to do it. But
I'd like the idea of bicycle patrols, too. Right?
bicycle or, yeah.
Say you were a step closer. Close to being a step closer.
Okay.
Bart, if you're selected for this position, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I really would strive to become a sergeant detective again. I like the position I'm in right now. I know being a patrolman again is one step backwards, but I see that it being 2 steps forward is my career and what's best for me and my family. And I would like to get to the level of sergeant detective again. I feel that that's a great position in a police department where you can make a difference and you still can be on the street helping people and solving crimes and working with the community. You're accessible, again, it comes down to.
So Bart, if you have any questions for us, feel free to ask them, or if you'd like to make a closing statement or tell us anything else about yourself that we haven't covered, please feel free.
I just want to thank you again for having the ability to interview with you, and I look forward to hopefully the next step if that happens, and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bart.
Thank you very much. So Chief, a couple of good candidates.
Very good candidates.
And again, I thank Deputy Chief King because he and Lieutenant Alba as well, Officer Matt Mercer did the background, Lieutenant West. We were a good 5 months into this, and this is the first 2 laterals I've ever recommended, and as I said to you earlier tonight, I'm glad that you did this because it gives you really, even though it's a quick glimpse, just an idea of the type of caliber, the people that you have. And there are certain things that you can't instill people: honesty, integrity, compassion, humanity. That those things come with them. I was a little worried. I am very familiar with the death of Officer Greg Maloney, who was killed in April of this year. It was very high profile. He was killed in his motorcycle. And I did know, she is friends with Pauline. They know each other pretty well. She's friends with several female officers. Pauline actually sang his funeral, so I was there and was aware of it. But there's a note in her background from a priest who was very involved with the coordination of that, about the role that she played within her department during that period of time. And one of the things that I really looked for when John brought the package to me was I looked for that partnership, because as you know, that's whether we are short people or not short people, every day we try to go out and foster those partnerships and build new ones. And I think the 2 of them will help us with that, and we're bringing a lot of experience here on this one. Not that they're perfect, and I appreciate every man and woman who works there, although I do think, with the appointment of her, we probably become the highest percentage female police department in the Commonwealth. She comes to, I think, 5th, she'll be, I think, the 15th officer. It's very high. So it's a credit to each of you.
Good news.
It is.
And I was intrigued by the background checks, the amount of paperwork. I'm sure we know about them, more about them than they know about themselves, with this paperwork.
Yeah, they don't get to see what you get.
Yeah.
No. The only thing they actually is their intake form, and then after that, it's all done by the background investigators and the interviewers, and it goes to you. They don't get to see it.
Yeah.
But it is one of the big, I've said this many times, who we hire and who we promote are 2 of the biggest things that I think all of us do. And so we do try to do our due diligence. And you and I spoke earlier today. I mean, no one's perfect. There's always things that come up questionable, but I think you saw tonight, just, I think both of them showed their skill. Bart's wife, who was here, she's a probation officer in Quincy Court, works very closely with many of our officers on a daily basis over there.
And they're both very good candidates, I think.
Yes, and I always think it's important to defer to the department head in hiring, and you've recommended these candidates to us, Chief. Clearly, they're both very well qualified for the positions.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of the police chief to appoint Bart T. Forsesi, 24 Lowell Street, Braintree, Mass., as a lateral transfer patrolman to the Milton Police Department, subject to successful medical review and personnel board approval.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll move to approve the recommendation of the police chief to appoint Tracy Mannion, 9 Bog Hollow Drive, Plymouth, Mass., as a lateral transfer patrolman to the Milton Police Department, subject to a successful medical review and personnel board approval.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Do you want to do the cadet while I'm here?
Yes,
Yeah,
let's
thank
do
you.
it. Go on to the police cadet, who looks like she's more than qualified to be a cadet.
She could be chief. I'm not sure. So I did send to you a background. We've had a recent cadet exam. This will be the first hire off of this, and I anticipate that we're probably going to be back shortly again. There's a vacant dispatcher position we want to fill first, which we're getting close on. This is, I think, going to be the first of 3, but this is a young woman who, as you saw from her background, she was first brought to my attention by a captain who runs the Family Justice Center in Boston, Genevieve King. This girl worked for her, and I didn't know who she was, but she wound up being the top scorer on the exam. As you can see from her background, she's done 3 internships, 2 within the forensic unit in the Family Justice Unit of the Boston Police, and 1 within the Fusion Center, or the Technical Center of the Massachusetts State Police. She has a degree in forensic science, we figured out, I explained to you, John and I were trying to figure out how she has a bachelor's at 21 already. She started college at 17 years of age. So she very well could be interviewing for a police job right now, but I'm very pleased to ask tonight, consistent with the kid appointments you've made in the past, that we appoint this young lady, Jamie Mitchell, of 635 Pleasant Street, as a police cadet.
I'll move to approve the appointment of Jamie Mitchell, 635 Pleasant Street, as a police cadet in the Milton Police Department, subject to a successful medical screening and personnel board approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tonight. It was a good night. See you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, good news for the police department, 3 good hires. All right, our next agenda item is a meeting with Bill Ritchie, who is our Consolidated Facilities Director, and is here to give us an update on what his department has been doing.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks for waiting with us tonight.
It was great. It was actually nice to see some nice interviews, and, you know what I mean, and look like fine police officers.
You do.
Yes, I gave you, a snapshot of the department. The first time we met, I did another snapshot. I can go through this piece by piece, but, there's a lot of pictures, there's a lot of projects that we work on. I'll go through it, and if you think I'm saying too much, you can tell me to, whatever, you can ask me a question. But basically, the big thing was capital projects. We received $104,000 last year. I'm finishing phase 2 of the major boiler work and upgrades in the town hall, and I put some pictures in the back there, show before and after. And also, we're finishing up the high school project. We received about $85,000 to do about 1,000 square feet of the paving behind Garrow Road out to Blue Parkway. And we completed that. We ripped up the road, did some drainage. It was really falling apart. That road was never really designed for its intention today. It was an access road that was only designed for ball games. And once we opened the gates, it became almost like a public road. Everyone used it now, so it really took enormous amount of wear and tear over the last 10 years, and that's why it had to be done over. And I have to really thank, John Thompson and Dale from the engineering department. I use their expertise and their contractors to help me do the project.
Good.
So they spent a lot of time working with me. A good consolidation.
That's what we like to see.
I think a mention should go to Leroy Walker as well. He was the
Yeah,
one-
well, he's on the capital committee. That was one of the biggest push on the capital committee.
Right.
Yeah. And then, then we received from the Warren Committee, we had some one-time money, $85,600. I had a whole bunch of projects, and one of the biggest things there that the COA needed some upgrades for the heating and ventilation. So we spent so far about $15,000 doing some air conditioning upgrades and some control upgrades. We added a new unit, and we tried to take some of the older units and kind of refunction them to actually have better air conditioning. So we finished a lot of that. In Pierce Middle School, we replaced some major paving behind the road. We also redesigned, there was a retaining wall in the back of the Pierce that was falling over. It was about a $12,000 project to knock the wall down and rebuild it. I kind of engineered it myself. I knocked the wall down for the contractor and regraded it and saved about $8,000 instead of building a new wall. I just felt the wall, it looked pretty, but it really wasn't practical. And, I'm not those types of block walls, if you have the right person doing it, it's nice, but there was really not enough drainage behind it, so it just kept heaving. And there's a nice picture of it. You can see it really leaning if you look at some of the pictures. Main library, we do an enormous lot of work at the library now with, working with Will in the library board, and we're doing we're doing some electrical commissioning over there with all the heat pumps and trying to get them to work better control. So, and it's nice working with Will. He really likes the department, and where he's brand new in the job, he likes to support a consolidated facility. I want to keep going.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll interrupt if we have
All right,
questions.
yep. The town hall, I left a picture there. We actually slowly were updating some of the equipment here. We did a brand-new fire alarm control panel down the boiler room. The panel was like about 25 years old. It was outdated, so we updated that. We're continuing with the phase 2 of the new handicap hardware and master lock system. As we go around, we've been updating all the handicap controls, and we did a whole new master lock system in the building The system was about 25 years old. We really didn't know who had keys. So now, Anne Marie and I, we kind of narrow it down. Only certain people have keys at the building. So we took back control, you know what I mean? So we know who comes and goes.
Is there a phase 3?
Phase 3 would be, yeah, we have about probably another 16, 17 locks. The hardware's expensive. It's about $400 a lock. So it adds up pretty quick. Yeah, and then there's a master key that you actually need a special card and have a key made. So we have I wanted to really have the control of who got a key, and so far it seems to be working pretty good. And phase 2 of the insulated glass has been going around. There's a lot of field glass here. The windows here were pretty old, so as the glass failed, I have a contractor come in, and we try to update the glass to a thermal pane insulated glass. So we did a couple doors. We did about 15 panes of glass so far.
It was not thermopane before?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I want to do the ones I think, that would be more energy efficient. And if we actually were to replace all the, some of these windows in 1972, it really, it's 40 years old, but it's about a $300,000 project. So I'm just thinking slowly somewhere down the line. We have it in the capital committee somewhere down the line, but it's not high on the list. It's just out there. It's always nice to put things out there, but it's not, it's not a high priority.
Yep.
So, and then we have consolidated facility projects ongoing. We received over the last year, we received a couple of energy grants. We did received grants for $21,000, and we continue to upgrade all the lighting, LED lights. We did all the schools. We received we did $15,000 light bulbs. We changed off from 32 watts to 28 watts, all in the grant programs. Free. You fill out the grant. You have to identify the projects, and they just they ship the light bulbs. So we received about $21,000 in free light bulbs. So yeah, so there's a lot of programs out there. You know what I mean? So we did that. Council aging, we do ongoing painting throughout and waxing floors and stripping. Fire department, we did some major water heating replacement. We also did some fire alarm equipment. The fire, obviously we talked about the fire department. We know we're doing, they have a study. Their system, fire alarm system, is very archaic. So what we did, we actually bought some hardware, new hardware, to replace some of the old hardware on the building and use the old hardware for parts for the other buildings, because you can't even find the hardware anymore. So, and that was all done in-house by our master electrician. So we're just trying to keep, because that building really, they had 15 smoke detectors and none of them worked. So they had some battery operated ones. So we went in there, we actually made a major correction in there. So.
That's pretty bad when the fire department's
Well, yeah, but it was just a system. Yeah, well, I don't think they really had, it was a really expensive job to go out and bid it out. So if we did, that job, we probably did that job for $2,500 in-house. It'd be a $10,000 job outside.
Yeah, because they're all hardwired.
Yeah, yep, and we have the staff in-house, so labor's free. So it's really nice when you have in-house staff that can do that type of work. In high school, we did new water heater installation in the high school. Pierce Middle School replacement of the irrigation controller. The park department put an irrigation system in about 4 or 5 years ago, but they put the controls into the old box. The old box rotted out, so we replaced the whole box in-house. We did that whole project in-house. Tucker School, we did major roof repairs.
Can you just go back to the Pierce?
Yep.
Where's the irrigation system over there?
That's on the backfield, but the park department did it about 4 years ago.
I got you,
But
okay.
the controls that run the irrigation was the old box, all rotted out.
I see.
So we took the whole box apart and
Got it.
we did all the hardware. Cunningham School, new drainage lines installed in the front lawn, so they always had a major puddle, so we dug it up, working with the DPW again. They assisted us, and we changed all the drainage over there, so made, a lot of kids were getting like muddy feet running through the mud, and it really helped out a lot. And we do, school-wide, we do major ongoing roof repairs. We have one of our maintenance workers is a professional roofer, so he does all our roofing in-house for free. I mean, anything that's not really a capitalized, but anything below that. And before, when we had this roofer, we were spending thousands of dollars each year. So having this person in-house is unbelievable. We can get to a roof leak in 2 or 3 hours versus waiting like 2 or 3 days.
Is there a lot of roof work, given the fact that the schools are still
That's what I was just
fairly
going to
new?
say. When I was on the school committee, it was one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yeah.
We spent 100 and how many million?
Oh, well, it's 130,000, and we get some
100
couple of money, so
130 million, and they
Anytime you
only
have flat
half
roofs,
repaired
and
the
when you
roofs.
have roofs with,
Yeah. Right. Right. So the history,
10, what is it, but 10 or 12 years for most of those buildings? Or
for the,
a little more
yeah,
for some of them?
yeah,
More than that.
Glover was, like, 2001, so yeah, so
Yeah.
Glover's like almost 13 years old.
So for a flat roof, is
Flat
that the
roof-
average range when they would
It's
start
about,
being some problems?
A flat roof would, a good flat roof would range anywhere from 20 to 30 years, depending on the maintenance you put to it.
The issue, Katie, is they only repaired half of the roofs.
Right.
They fixed up the whole schools, but left the roofs only half repaired.
Yeah,
So
because,
it's an ongoing issue forever now.
because the other half of roofs were still under warranty. When they were doing the construction project, there was still 5 to 10 years left on the roofing projects, on those roofs. So, and they were deemed good, but now, 10 years later,
On the schools that were renovated rather than...
exactly, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we have, so Glover has, half the roof is the older roof, 1997. Tucker, half the roof is the old, Cunningham College got half the roof. In Pierce, the old science wing, which was done in 1997, was a roof, and that roof was actually the staging to get to the newer project, which took a major beating. So, but no, it's nice to have this person in the house, so we can keep it going, you mean? But somewhere down the line, we're gonna have to replace these roofs.
I know it's difficult to do, and I know we've definitely saved money by having in-house people doing a lot of these. Do you have any idea, or could you even put an estimate on what the cost savings have been compared to if we had to do these projects?
Well, I think the easiest one and the most fresh one in my mind is the heating ventilation technician who's actually on the school side, who actually works in consolidation also. Jim, was an $80,000 a year salary. Before, we were spending $60,000 to $70,000 for a quarter of the work he's doing on a full-time basis. So Jim's value to me is about $200,000, and we're paying $80,000 for Jim. Because he's a control expert. Not only does he do, the work, he goes in, programs the system, makes sure it's working properly, so we're saving energy. And he's at least one or 2 days a week, he's working at the library. It's a high-tech system, yeah, so it's a value. Our master electrician, who we hired last year, he did the BDA project, the bi-directional attendants for the police department,
Right.
running cables. Just him doing that project saved $50,000. His salary's $60,000. So that one project,
Pays for his whole salary,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It's amazing that your savings. But you still have to have the work, you have to have materials, and, but it's,
Bill, I just have one more question on the roofs.
yeah.
We have a lot of solar panels on the roofs now. Any issues with those?
No.
Any leaks? None?
Now, we have periodic leaks to our solar panels, because obviously, they are mounted on the roofs, and, there may be a leak underneath it, but we have, we go up, and within one day, we find the leak. But nothing major,
Yeah.
small little leak, you're always going to have leaks, because you always have seams, and it's on the roof, like, they're huge. We have a lot of acres of roof on top of the buildings. And then I'll run down the school do work order system. Last time we reported to you, we had put the brand-new work order system into place a few years ago. Last time I reported to you, we had 2,000 work orders. I predicted the next time I see you, be up to 4,000. Well, it came short, about 3,700. But it's amazing, as people know we're out there, the work orders are really starting to come in. And we're about, as of last week, we were 200, we're about 250 behind schedule right now. Because everyone knows we're out there, we have the brand-new maintenance painter, and everybody wants painting done. So that's an enormous position for us, because we were using our other skilled trades to do painting, and then that kind of deferred that maintenance. So having a painter in-house, and I know Mary Ann, we're all in this together, but, everybody will benefit by this painter, and he also does maintenance work, and he's working the evening shift, because I said I did not want to have a painter work the day shift, because he couldn't paint things. So it's the first position in this department. It's, off hours, 2:30 to 10:30, Monday to Friday. So he can paint when everybody's gone home, he paints.
That's great.
So it's very, very valuable. Not only the position, but the hours is really important. We just signed a brand-new cleaning contract for the town hall, the library, and the senior center for 3 years. I did a 1 year with the option 2 or 3 years, and we saved about $5,000.
Same company?
It's one company, but I took, instead of hiring one company, which could have been more advantageous for me, but at the end, it was better for the taxpayers if I broke the contract up, because I saved $5,000 by having 2 cleaning contractors. So I take the money anytime I can get it. It's just, $5,000 is $5,000, I have to take it, And both contracts are working pretty good. Staffing update, you know, obviously we hired a new consolidated facilities maintenance painter. His name is Matthew Mercer. He's from Milton, Mass. And he's proven to be a great asset so far. And I also like to say, I always thank the people on my staff because my job is directing to manage, but the staff is what makes me look good. So I always like to thank my staff. They work hard. It's a brand-new department. You know, obviously, you know, they have to work hard every day trying to prove themselves in a new department. So my hat goes out to all the guys that work, guys and girls that work for me in the department. And then last, I'd like to special thanks to all the landscapers who contribute to, Johnny Driscoll, who helps, does the library, over here in Town Hall. Eagle Farms helps out at the schools. Malloy Landscaping helps out at the Pierce Middle School. Coulter Landscaping also helps out at Tucker, and the volunteer amateur garden people do all these beautiful flowers. I mean, I don't want to endorse anyone, but it's always nice to recognize people who volunteer their time and talent for free. It's enormous savings for us, so it's always nice just to recognize them.
Really generous people.
They are, they do a lot of nice work.
Yeah, Driscoll does beautiful job. Yeah, everybody says, Bill, who maintains your, I said, these guys in-house, and that's a private contractor. You definitely can see the difference, you know?
And the amateur gardeners always do a nice
Yeah,
job
flowers.
seasonally with all
Yeah,
the plants
they
and
do. They really
flowers out
do,
here.
yes.
So that's pretty much what I have. Obviously, we're working with, we have, working with that net metering project, with the solar of 5 megs, and the update with that project's still going on, still trying to get permits. It has not started yet. The permit process is a long process.
And that's the one
In
they're going to
Reedville?
put down on the
That's
old
on Reedville,
Reedville,
yes.
yeah.
So before 4 megawatts for the school system and one for us, probably all said and done, maybe $250,000 savings a year combined. So it's nice, I mean.
It's no-brainer, yeah.
It's no-brainer, yeah.
Bill, I think you're involved with the textile recycling.
I am,
Could you
yes.
say a few words about that and how, we started with one school, has that been pushed out to
Yeah,
other
we
schools?
pushed it out to 4 schools, so we have, so textile recycling is, it's a great, it's green, so you bring your, clothing, blankets, shoes, and they take them and actually it offsets it offsets the trash in the town. So far, I think we saved, we put it out, I believe it started, say, the end of June, the town, the PTOs would gather about $500 so far. It seems to be working. We have 2 at Collycott and Cunningham, we have 1 at Pierce, 1 at the high school, and 1 at Glover right now. And hopefully, as it grows and gets bigger, and they start competing against one another, that's the whole idea is for the PTOs to compete from school to school, and that's how they get more people that throw the recycle. But it's a great thing, I think.
That's
People
good.
seem to like it. There's a couple of issues sometimes, people throw the wrong things into it, but it seems to be working. I think Joe Lynch is happy. It's, we don't really, it might take a year before we can see the reduction in trash, but they've already gathered, I think, about like 7 tons of recyclable. So that stuff does not go into the trash that we
Yeah.
have to pay for.
That's great.
So I think it's a good program.
It seems to be moving faster than we thought it would.
Yeah. Yeah, so
We've
I've
already
been,
pushed it out to all those schools, and it is a win-win. It helps the
Yeah.
PTOs with money, but it also helps us reduce the tipping fees, I guess, ultimately, for
Yeah.
the amount of the weight of the trash that we're...
yeah, we have 1 at Pierce, and that seems to be getting full quicker than the week, so actually we might have to go to a second one. It's a big school, and it's kind of in a nice location. It's right in centrally, the Pierce Mill, so a lot of people see it, so I think they use that a lot. In Collycott and Cunningham, it's behind the building, but so it's mostly the people that go to school there, or the PTOs. But, so,
Well, that's great, and it was really, Bill and Joe Lynch,
yeah.
more so Bill, I think, have been involved in it more recently, but a resident brought this to everyone's attention, Lee Pukel, who did a lot of work on that, and she must be pleased with the progress that's been made.
Yeah, we started, yeah, he contacted me about 2 years ago. And I said, textile recycling. I said, Bill, you're a green guy. You like green things. This is a perfect thing for you. And then I worked with Joe, and obviously Joe pays for all the trash in town, and we want to find the right opportunity. And after researching it, it was great to put out in the schools.
Is it textile scraps and things like
Yeah.
that? Not
Yeah.
clothes that would have been otherwise donated to?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. They pretty much recycle a whole bunch of things, yeah. It's really nice. Works good, and it happens in a lot of towns.
Yeah, no, it's been a great program. That's good news.
Good. Bill, one question. The pros and cons of, and right now we don't have a mechanism to do it, but of trying to cross-bill some of your consolidated facility services to other budgets, since they are getting benefit and
Right.
your budget will continue to grow, and
Yeah.
any budget that's growing is an easy target.
Yeah.
So, the the pros and cons of a cross-billing kind of?
Yeah, well, the way we do it right now, obviously, we supply 100% of the labor
Yep.
to all the other buildings. I will have to say, you know, I was kind of nervous at first. I said, nobody's going to want to pay for bills, but, you know, the library, the police department, schools, no, you know, I give them the bill, they do pay the bill.
For the materials?
Yeah, for all the materials, I mean, so it does work
So
good.
at least that's getting done.
It's getting done, you mean, the hard part for me in not having the history, because, you know, it's all predictive. It's very hard to find out what does it really cost to maintain, to put a budget together, to repair things. I don't know from day to day. I mean, it's a whole different type of engineering. Somewhere down the line, it would be nice if we could have some 5-year history and say, okay, we're spending $50,000 at the school department for supplies. Maybe that money could be funded to my budget.
Right.
You know, with a library, 10,000 or percentage, or you come up with a square foot cost,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I think we found out that, you know, that was, it was almost impossible to do when we were on
Very hard.
that committee when
Yep.
when the
Yep.
consolidated facilities first got
Yep.
started, that the answer consistently came back, we don't spend any money.
Right.
You know, we have
Yeah.
no budget for it.
yeah.
If we need it, we find it from someplace else.
But I would say that all the departments have been very good, you know, with even Joe Lynch, the library, the police department, COA, I mean, Council on Aging is very limited budget, so my budget, I try to pay for a lot of their things, because they really have a very mean and lean. So for right now, it does work. I mean, it's not, nobody's saying, Bill, I want the labor, because I want materials for free. It doesn't seem to work that way. But as the department grows, and I really haven't been putting out, going to the Warren Committee, a lot of, you know, building my budget other than labor.
Right.
Because you really need the skill. I mean, I have, you know, the goal is the next 2 years is to get another general maintenance person to support the heating, ventilation technician, and my master electrician. Because when they're up on the roof by themselves, they need to run down to the truck, you know, pack their bags, go down there. And it's always good when you're dealing with live controls. It's nice to have somebody with you up on the roof. God forbid if anything would happen, it's nice to have somebody there. And maybe down the line, maybe a licensed carpenter that can do masonry work and do petitions and stuff. But I'm just going slow, like I said, and, you know, I know the budgets are lean, but I'm just slowly trying to build a department. That's pretty much it.
Good.
Great job.
You know, it's
Thank you,
fun.
Bill.
It's a challenging day. Every day's busy. I mean,
Sure
never a
it is.
boring day, you know.
I'm sure it's not. All right, well, thank
Thanks,
you,
Bill.
Bill.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, all right?
Thanks, Bill.
All right, have a good night, yep.
You too.
Night.
Yep.
We are now on to a meeting with our town treasurer, Jim McAuliffe.
Hey, Jim.
This is Richard Rogers from Abbey Financial. He does all our investments,
Hey, Richard.
Hi, Richard.
all the trust funds.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay, we're having I would say, it's a bit of a problem. The legal list of investments that we use in our investment policy, it has gone over the years from 37 stocks down to 22 stocks. All the stocks are in a few fields. Most of them are drug companies and banks. So our investment options are limited. And we want to keep equities, about 30% in equities in all our trust funds. The rest are in bonds, CDs, and what have you. And a few towns, well, I know the Mass Treasury Association trying to pass a prudent investor rule. And it gets brought up every year. It sits in committee. It never gets through. So a lot of towns are taking it upon themselves now to go out and do a home rule petition to, for the prudent investor rule. And a lot of them are going the prudent investor rule, but then they're tailing it back to just the Standard & Poor's 100. So it gives you 100 options instead of 22. Most of the stocks on the legal list are in the Standard & Poor's 100. So we want to move in that direction. I spoke to John Flynn today. He had a couple different opinions on how the town of Peabody did it. There's a few other towns out there that are going through it right now. So I told him before we voted on anything, I'd sit down with John and Rich and work out a way that would suit the town's bylaws. Because every town's bylaws are different. So we don't want to vote on that tonight. But it's just something that I just want to bring up and see if we can move forward on it. Because right now, I mean, when the economy's bad, those 22 stocks, it's a flight to safety, and they perform okay. when things get good, people jump out of those stocks, and then our equities will not perform as well. So we want to get away from just the 22 stocks and get it up to 100 stocks. I know the library is looking for more options. The cemetery, when you sit down with their trustees, are looking for more options to invest in, and 22 stocks just is not doing it right now.
No, you're not diversified either.
Yeah, and it's not diversified. It's, for safety's sake, you're better off with more options and spread out the funds.
And Jim, just for the benefit of people who might be watching, these are just trust funds we're talking about.
Just trust funds. General
And
funds, you don't invest in stocks.
And so, could you give just an example? Like, is it the scholarship funds?
It's scholarship funds, stabilization funds, OPEB, cemetery funds, the library funds. Any trust fund is under the legal list at the moment in our investment policy.
For the cemeteries at the perpetual care fund that you'd be
Yeah.
talking about? Okay.
OPEB are actually under Chapter 32, so you can use the prudent investor rule to manage OPEB funds.
Right.
Okay.
It's a little different.
How much are we talking about, Jim, like right now?
What's the total, about
$9 million.
$9 million or so between the cemetery and the trust funds.
Is it making money?
Oh, yeah, we've been making money recently. And actually, I mean, every year we do pretty well. Yeah, he is part of the reason we are a AAA rated community.
Right. But if you're allowed to invest in the S&P 500, the 100 best stocks, you think you'll make more money?
Well, it's a better chance of not losing money by sticking with the 22 stocks we have. So you just want to diversify, and that way it's going like this instead of this and this.
The 22 stocks are on the legal list. They're all consumer staples. Last 3.5, 4 years, they've done extremely well. Most of them are trading at, levels that, on a historical level are 2.5, 3 times their normal, like price to earnings, price to sales, things like that. And now, people are hanging out with them because of 2.5, 3.5, 4% dividend yields.
Mm-hmm.
As rates tend to rise, when they, maybe June next year, they start to raise the federal funds rate, people are going to start to look for competing investments against the Kelloggs and things like that, and the Procter & Gamble's. So the S&P 100, the largest companies in is able to broadly diversify our portfolio into many sectors that aren't on the legal list, the 22 stocks. I've modified the legal list many times over the last 22 years. I was one of the main people that would modify it every year. Then they kind of changed the rules, and the state kind of doesn't have too much of an interest in even modifying it anymore, and I'm actually unable to even modify it going forward.
So this really isn't per se the prudent investor. I mean, because the prudent investor,
That's
Section
right.
203, it is a methodology of investing. It's a wide open, for the most part, but a methodology. We're not saying we're going to adopt a methodology other than we're going to just broaden the
Investment options.
The investment
All the same
Yeah.
stipulations that govern us under the Chapter 44, Section 54, Mass General laws. That's why you want to crawl doing this, because you want to have all this restrictions and stipulations of how to manage trust funds from the general mass legal list, pretty
Right.
much.
Just
They're on the legal
broaden the list
list.
a
All
little
we're
bit.
doing is this, modifying the prudent investor rule all the way back to only allowing the S&P 100 stocks.
Right.
Which is adding, actually, the 17 of the stocks on the legal list are on the S&P 100. So we're really adding, not exactly, 87 stocks.
And again, as the amateur investor here on stocks, not real estate, how do we move forward? What are you looking for here?
Well,
And what other towns were allowed to do this?
right now, Concord goes strictly prudent investor. Peabody
Peabody, we just went through the process. The city council voted 100% to do it. The mayor took it on, and they said this makes sense to diversify funds. It was common sense. And so the councilors voted it. Then what we did is a home rule petition, or they did a home rule petition, and it's actually up at the State House in the municipal committee. Brookline did this in 2003. They went
full prudent.
full prudent investor rule. I've spoken to the treasurer many times. He went with a full prudent investor rule. The State House did vote on it. They approved it. So I find it would be difficult for them to not allow the city of Peabody, Stoneham, Leominster,
Greenfield?
Amherst, Greenfield, all the municipalities we manage money for. That I'm.
Got
No, Peabody's the first one.
Okay.
I live in Milton, grew up in Milton, so this is, I think,
we
5,
know
10 years
where
from
to find
now.
them.
So 5, 10 years from now, I think we'll have a lot more money if we have the ability to diversify these funds.
Well, it
Especially
certainly
at
makes
this juncture.
sense. I mean, you're right. I mean, the broader the base of your investment portfolio,
Right.
you at least are going to flatten out those highs and lows, if nothing else.
So is it a home rule petition we're looking for here?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I talked to Representative Timilty, and he's on board with it.
Mhm.
And I talked to John Flynn, and I want to sit down with John and craft the right way to do this. He had some ideas different from the way Peabody did it. So I just want to sit down with Richard and John to see the best way to go about it.
And Jim, this requires a vote of the board in addition to
It-
your approval of it?
Yeah, John thought it could be just a vote of the Board of Selectmen and then go to home rule petition, or it could be Selectmen, town meeting, home rule petition. So that's one of the things we're looking at right now, which is the best way to go about it.
But it sounds like it's a joint decision between the treasurer and the selectmen
Oh,
together.
yes, yeah.
We amended our investment policy a couple of years ago, didn't we? Or
We
adopted a new
we
one?
adopted an investment policy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you just be changing
Mhm.
the legal list to Standard Poor's 100.
Okay.
Anything else you'd like to add or discuss?
Well, that's all on this subject.
Well, I think this is, I mean, it shows you how good our treasurer is in thinking outside the box here, making more money for our different departments and prudent investing. So well done, Jim.
Scholarship
And
funds
Well done
and-
to our
Thank you.
advisor here as well.
And he has some skin in the game because he's a child in the Milton school system, so
Yeah.
There you go.
if he does well in the investment policy, who knows?
So we'll just wait for an update
I'll
from
get free
John
tuition.
Flynn?
Yeah, yeah, I'm going to sit with John and
I know.
Rich and see the best way to approach it.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do some further work on this and take it up at a later date.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, good.
All right. And then, do we have something to tackle?
We do, Jim, I don't know if you
Okay.
want, if we need Richard for this one or not.
You're free to find out. Good.
All right.
Thank you,
All
Richard.
right, thank you,
Rich.
welcome.
Bye.
Welcome.
So, Jim, we also put on the agenda, as you know, just a policy discussion regarding tax title properties.
Yep.
We're going through the process right now with the planning board of trying to adopt a housing production plan. And one of the things that we're looking at is town-owned properties that might become available at some point for affordable housing potentially. And tax title property is one of those areas that we've had a little bit of discussion about. And those are maybe you can explain the process of how that works, but before you do that, the idea is that if the town's able to acquire some of those properties, we'd like to see if, and maybe we need to talk with the planning board about this and get them to weigh in too and take a vote. The idea would be to have those properties considered for affordable housing. Not all of them may be appropriate,
Yeah.
but it may
that's
be
the
that
word,
if you take a property by tax title, your interest obviously is in collecting the overdue taxes, but the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board are trying to focus on affordable housing, and perhaps those are properties that might become available either through the Affordable Housing Trust, once we have it capitalized and up and running, or through a private developer to purchase that a property that you've acquired and use it for affordable housing, so that we serve two goals of collecting the tax revenue and also making some more property available for affordable housing.
Yeah, I spoke to Mary Bosquet. She's a treasurer over at Halston. They have a pretty thorough document on this. And what happens in Halston, they do get the first right, these different funding agencies for affordable housing. And what they'll do is they'll pay off the tax title, the amount on the tax title, then they get the property. So instead of auctioning it off, say if there's $50,000 owed on the property at time of foreclosure, they'll give the town $50,000, then they take the project on from that point on. Some other towns have different funding mechanisms. They'll use some of the proceeds on an auction and fund affordable housing through that. So if you have a property with $50,000 tax title, you foreclose on it, you auction off, make $300,000. A portion of that, or $250,000, could go right into an affordable housing trust.
Right.
Other towns do it based on different mechanisms on, if filing could be $5 more on a demand, that goes right into an affordable housing. So I mean, every town has some different mechanism to fund it and also to sell off these properties.
But you could make the decision based on the individual property, each
Oh,
property.
oh, definitely.
I mean,
yeah,
you wouldn't
yeah.
adopt just a bylaw.
No, I mean, you could make a policy that, you know, the Affordable Housing Trust gets to take a look at it if it's a project worthwhile before you put it up for auction.
Yeah, I think it all depends on how we word the policy. I did talk with one of town council's colleagues who does some tax title work in other communities and gave me some of the same information that you've gotten, Jim, from the people you've been consulting. So because, you know, you're an elected official, we're elected officials, but we've got independent boards and the planning board, and obviously they're all elected, and we all have different little areas of jurisdiction that we're overseeing. We'd have to agree upon a policy with the treasurer
we all work
that
for
would
the
serve
town,
your
you
goal.
know?
And we're all on the same team, but your objective is to collect the tax revenue, and we're focused on affordable housing. So how do we kind of come up with a policy that melds it together and serves your purpose and serves our purpose? And it's just a matter of putting a written policy in place if we're both agreeable to it.
Well, I know one of the treasurers I talked to said, oh, they always take the prime properties. So, you know,
Who does?
the Affordable Housing Trust, she says, oh, the ones I can get good dollars for at auction, they always take them on me and stick me with the junk.
Well,
Especially
again,
Milton, we have
not
not
all-
much junk, so.
Right.
So
Yeah,
what happens with a property that you take back and you sell it and you make, we'd say, $300,000? What happens to that money? Does it go to the
Well,
general
what
fund?
happens, if I take a property, like we took the property up on Meeting House Lane, and at the time, they owed $350,000 in back taxes. So we got it, we held an auction, we sold it for $455,000. So the $350,000 goes and pays off the back taxes and tax title. The other $105,000 goes right into the general funds, that's free cash. So anything you get above and beyond will add it to the free cash figure.
Okay.
So sometimes you might not want to give away a nice piece of property, you want to make some money in.
Yeah, and I think the policy probably would be to consider
Yeah.
each property acquired through tax title in recognizing that they might not all be appropriate for it.
Yeah.
It might depend on the location and the size of the property, how much square footage there is, whether a developer is interested, whether the trust has the resources. You know, so there's a lot of different factors, but I think the goal would be to try to just consider all of them.
Yeah. In this town, a lot of the properties, once you put it in foreclosure, it puts them on notice, and they'll either go out and try to sell the property, they'll refinance, they'll settle.
Right, so it doesn't
Before it
happen
goes to
all at
foreclosure.
once.
It doesn't happen that often. Maybe once every 2-3 years, we'll get a piece of property where the person just won't do anything about it. And fortunately, we have 2 right now in the pipeline in the next few months that may be put out to auction.
Maybe we should pursue and see what, you know, more other towns do, and, you know, for example, Wellesley, Needham, you know, and, I know Nantucket, for a fact, has a program similar to, you know, tax title property goes, not to the Affordable Housing Trust, but they have a separate nonprofit down there that basically gets first crack at anything that comes available.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of different alternatives. But the idea, at least for what we need to explore, was your willingness to enter into this sort of a policy and have this kind of a
That's
discussion.
no problem.
Okay. So maybe we should, I mean, Jim's got his counsel who does tax title properties, maybe consult with Jim's attorney and with town council and see what kind of other policies we can come up with as examples.
Yeah, see what other communities are doing. Yeah.
And the man we use is Jim Capola out of Marblehead, and I always wondered, how did Kim and Sorgi get an attorney from Marblehead to do tax title? And they went out to treasurer school. He's the man that teaches all the classes. And he handles probably half the municipalities, and so he's very good.
Okay, so we've got some interest in doing it, and we should just do some due diligence and some research and come back with a draft of a policy at a later meeting.
I do have a copy of the Holliston policy downstairs. It's a good read.
Yeah, good, maybe we could start taking a look at that. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Okay, the next item, we had 2 items for 0 Central Avenue. One is we're going to combine them together. We have a demolition bid extension. We have our demolition agreement that we entered into with Carrick Realty back in May has a date of September 30th, which is a week from today, to do the demolition. And we have not yet, we have a pending bid that we have not yet accepted. We did ask for an extension, which we received, but we have not acted on that bid yet. So the idea would be to extend the period of time in which the demolition is required, from September 30th to, we have a draft amendment that would provide an extension until November 30th.
Okay. I'll move to approve a First Amendment to the agreement between the Town of Milton and Carrick Realty Trust so that the concurrent demolition of the town-owned building at 0 Central Ave and the Carrick building at 131 Elliott Street shall be completed by November 30th, 2014.
Second.
Any discussion?
Will, in your opinion, Katie, when and if town meeting approves the eminent domain, will we have that in our possession by November the 30th?
Will we have the 1,200 square foot parcel in our
Yeah.
possession? That's the goal, that it's a relatively short period of time that's required after the eminent
Right,
domain
so it's
article is,
doable, yeah.
yes, is voted at town meeting, assuming that we get a positive vote on that.
Because it's important that these buildings come down, if they are to come down before
Yeah.
the winter.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, absolutely.
Yes. Yes, and as we've said at prior meetings, we're in discussions with the principal of Carrick Realty, and we both were at a hearing before the Conservation Commission last week, so it's a complicated project, and there's a lot that still needs to happen, and we do have a town meeting article coming up that we
Okay.
need to deal with. So if no other discussion, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, the next item on our agenda is relates to the town meeting warrant for the fall town meeting, to open and close the special town meeting warrant.
Can I ask Katie, are we done with number 13? Or?
Yes, unless you
We're
had
done.
something
No, I had nothing, but
else.
okay.
So just by way of background, the town meeting warrant has, I believe, 19 articles, and we have a copy that I think has just been given to us tonight. I don't know. So does this one have the report of the committee in it? And the comments, the draft we had seen didn't have it looks like they've been added to this version. So we have now a complete copy of the warrant. One of the articles was for an appropriation for trees that we had submitted at the request of Senator Joyce when he was in here giving a presentation over the summer. He asked that we submit that article and talked about some reimbursement that's available from the state. The warrant committee had a lot of questions about that article, and they felt that they had made appropriations in May, which is the time that the annual budget is usually voted, and that there really wasn't a funding source available to them. We discussed some possible options for funding, but the town administrator and I talked with the DPW director, Joe Lynch, and because there are some cost savings from the solid waste contract, now that we have a new contractor, Mr. Lynch was agreeable to diverting some of the cost savings to pay for trees, $10,000.
He's not going to make it a separate line item, he's just going to
That's a good move.
Yes. So the article would no longer be needed, and I talked with Ted Hayes about withdrawing this article for the trees, since we're able to do it within the budget as voted at the May town meeting. The Swift Hat House articles are ones that we submitted a few weeks ago. They're currently Articles 18 and 19. And one of them relates to the land that it would involve a transfer of the land from the park commissioners to the Board of Selectmen. The second article would be an authorization for us to acquire the Swift Hat building as a gift. We've said it at some prior meetings, there's a lot of interest in trying to see what we can do to preserve the Swift Hat House, but there's also a lot of open questions. And I think probably as Tom and I have a good understanding of from our days on the warrant committee, we never want to be in a position where we're submitting an article to the warrant committee that's not really ready to go and isn't really ripe. They've made no recommendation at this time because they know that we still have a lot of due diligence and work on our end to do to resolve some issues and figure out some questions. But I think the idea from the feeling among some people who've talked to me about this, and I think just in talking with the town administrator and the planning director and others, is that the articles are probably more appropriate for the May 2015 town meeting, that they're really not fully ripe yet because we have so many open issues and questions to be answered, that town meeting has enough on its plate with all the other zoning articles, and some of which will generate some discussion and take some time at town meeting. So it's probably best to not take town meeting's time and the warrant committee's time on 2 articles when we still have a number of open questions.
Can you give me an example of the open questions, Katie, if you can think of any?
Well, whether the land is parkland or not, what the historical use of that property has been. I've talked with Mike Roberts a few times since we had the site walk, including this afternoon, to let him know what our current thoughts were on the 2 articles. And he would like to know what the town's position is sooner rather than later, but he also understands that what his plans are for his property, the gift of the red house impacts what he can do with his property. And the 2 parcels are not really tied together, but they relate to each other. So he's got some ideas that he would like to pursue for development of his property where the red house currently sits. And we did have a meeting with him a while back, and we asked that he sit down and talk with the town planner about some ideas for that parcel. And what can be done at that parcel really relates to what he might be able to do in terms of a gift of the red house. So those are some of the open issues. What the purpose of the red house would be if it's moved to town land is another issue. There's just a lot of moving pieces, for lack of a better term here. So the recommendation that I was going to present to the board is that we withdraw Articles 18 and 19. Not, again, just to emphasize for viewers, not because there's a lack of any interest in this, but because they can be in a better position to go forward at the May town meeting. We might want to consider appointing a committee to work on some of these issues, possibly comprised of a member of this board, member of the park commissioners, the historical commission, possibly some residents who have a real interest in preserving this property. But it's important to note that we wouldn't be withdrawing them because we don't want to go forward. We wouldn't be withdrawing them because there's any lack of interest. To the contrary, there is a lot of interest. It's just a matter of, are the articles ripe for town meeting at this time?
But have we determined who does own the land, where the building would be transferred onto?
Well,
I
town
believe it's
council and the town planner are still looking into that question. We think it's parkland. That's what the premise that we're operating on. The town planner is doing a lot of historical research. He's just stepped out of the room, but
I think that becomes the bigger issue is the history of that land, and is it in fact the Olmsted Park?
Yes.
And obviously not wanting to damage anything there, if that's in fact what that land is. So yeah, I think we do need research to make sure that we're making the appropriate move if we do decide that's where we should move it.
And the research is going on. It's taking a while. It's leading in some different directions, and then there is still the question of what the house would be used for, and we probably need to get a better handle on that before we ask town meeting to allow us to take the property. Several years ago, there was an article to take the Milton Women's Club, and I wound up being recused on that because it's not far from where I live. But the warrant committee at the time, I was at that time the chair of the warrant committee, and Tom was the one who had to take that one over. There were a lot of questions that came out of the warrant committee as to the condition of the building. Do we have the resources to maintain it? So we have all those same questions with the Red House. And there may be grant opportunities, there may be other preservation monies available. We have to explore a lot of that. But we really need to be in a position where we can tell town meeting, we've done all this research, we have answers to a lot of the questions, and we think we're in a position to go forward with these. And right now, there's just a number of open questions that it seems that we really shouldn't present these to town meeting in October. We should do more work on it and hold them off for a little longer. We're not that far away from January, believe it or not, and early January is the deadline for submitting articles for May. So that would give the warrant committee more time to look at these, gives us time to finish up some loose ends.
And that being said, and I think we have reasonable assurance that the building won't be torn down in that interim, and I don't think it will be either.
Yes, no, and Mike Roberts understands where we're coming from with.
But that was a concern that the way in Milton there is no historic preservation per se. There's no historic district that you can't
Yeah.
All we have is a cooling off period of 9 months.
I think so, yes.
9-month
Yeah.
moratorium, yep.
Right, and then it can be taken down. So this building has gone beyond that 9-month period. Yeah, personally, and I think we're basically in agreement that we want to save that building, that it's worth saving, it should be saved. So I think that's our goal.
So long as we can come up with a plan for it, that we, that we can either raise some money or come up with the means to make it become self-sufficient and pay for itself, for its own maintenance costs going forward. Assuming we can do that, Tom, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get some people that at all costs it should be saved. And I'm not sure. I'm close to that. I'm getting tired of just losing historic properties in this town. We've lost so many, and
Yeah, so we're making the effort on this one, and that's why we submitted the articles a few weeks ago, because we knew that the owner of the building has the ability to demolish the building. I think might even already have a demolition permit for it. And, based on further discussions with him, he understands what the town's issues are, what the timing here is, and that it probably is better not to submit an article to town meeting for the fall. That's really not ready to go yet.
Mm-hmm.
So he understands
I
where we're
agree.
coming from, and he's made a generous offer of the building to the town, and I think he's willing to work with us on this.
I mean, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't support this, pulling this off the table, because as a developer myself, this guy is ready to go. He has a demolition permit in his hand, and he can tear it down tomorrow. And by delaying it, what we don't want is another Hendry's building, where there's confrontation between the town and the developer, and we end up getting nothing. And he's going to tear it, well, he's not going to tear it down until he gets his permits, obviously, to put up a new building. That's what I'm trying to avoid by having this go forward now. If we leave it till May, I can almost guarantee it'll be April by the time we do any homework on this again. I would hope not. And then it's going to get delayed again. So I would make the recommendation that we move forward with this and just put the effort into it over the next few weeks to get this in front of town meeting, get it approved, and move on. Time is money in this business, and elected officials like ourselves, we have a habit of holding everything up, and I'm just not in agreement with it.
I think the practical problem we have right now is I don't know if we'll get it through town meeting if we.
I think at best, town meeting would send it back to us for further study,
Study, yeah.
but what it could generate is a lot of discussion at town meeting when we already have 16 articles that are going to take probably at least 2 nights, maybe more, to go through. And might lead to all kinds of other avenues being explored. You just don't know what's going to happen if you go to town meeting without answers to all the questions that might come up, and without a plan for, what are we going to do if we move it? There are some people who have voiced concern about moving it to the location on Wharf Street and Adams, and question whether that's really the appropriate site because of some of those issues Tom raised, the Olmsted issue, the historical parcel. Other people have suggested different locations for it. So there are enough questions that I think it will generate some debate if it goes forward, but the likely result is it'll be sent back to us for further study, and we can continue doing that. I don't think we're going to be in a position where we find that it's months without doing anything, and then suddenly it's April and we're working on it. Bill Clark and Town Council are working on the historical issues, and I know Bill has consulted some local historians and others, so he's putting in a pretty good amount of time, just given everything else that's pending, and I think we'll have some answers.
I think what you're saying makes sense, but you'll take the no man's land, we'll call it, between Jerry Connolly's building and the town-owned portion. We've owned that building since the mid-90s, and it's only a couple of months ago we found out about this no man's land. Like we've had all these years to find out who owned it, and all of a sudden it's down to the wire. I just don't want this to happen again with the Swift Hat House, in particular because the real estate market is driven by trends. And right now we're on an upward trend, and this developer does not want to miss the upward trend. If he feels that there's only a year or two left and it's going to take him over a year to get permits, he may just take it down and we lose another historical building, just like Tom said. We don't want to do that.
Well, I think right now that it's a unique parcel, and there are some zoning issues. It's zoned commercially, even though there's a two-family house on the property. So there are some zoning issues that would apply to his property. And, one suggestion I thought about making was appointing a committee, because right now we don't really have a group of people working on this. We have some interested citizens, we have the Historical Commission that wants to save it, we have the park commissioners who are willing to work with us. We've had a meeting with some other committee chairs, with the town administrator, with Mr. Roberts, but we don't have a dedicated committee working on this. So that would be one option, to appoint a committee that can really focus its time over the next few months on coming up with a plan to address what we do with the Swift Hat building and work on the answers to some of these questions. I understand where you're coming from, Dennis. You don't want to lose an opportunity and take the risk of having the building torn down. I think the owner is understanding of the town's position. Probably was disappointed that we're pulling the articles initially, but understands that it's best not to submit an article to town meeting that really has a lot of loose ends. That was the conversation that I had with him this afternoon. And he was understanding of where we were coming from.
I do support pulling the articles because I don't think they're ready right now, but I don't support appointing another committee. I think if we finally do decide to take it and move it, I think just go out. The best way to figure out what the best use for the building is to get proposals. I mean, we go through these, and they just become political nightmares when you start appointing committees. And I mean, we saw what happened on the Granite Ave thing, and I think if you just went out and got proposals, then you'd get a lot of good ideas, a lot better ideas than 3 or 4 people in a room trying to figure out what to do with it. Let the let the business community, let the people out there that have interest in it figure out what the highest and best use is, and then evaluate them.
Well, they'd address that question, but the question about is Wharf and Adams Street the right location? The master plan committee, I think, is already kind of weighing in a little bit on that. Might have some more discussions Monday night. I think the master plan, the initial draft of the master plan had a suggestion that it be used as a tourism or a information office, and that probably isn't financially feasible. And I think, well, you would know better. You're on the master plan committee. I think that might be getting another look at the master plan by the consultants.
Right.
So, but there's issues more than just what can you use the building for. There's also
The site.
the site.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So my thinking was a committee, especially with a park commissioner on it, since they have, currently we think the land is theirs, and the historical commission and some residents who are interested and motivated to save the
To
building.
determine is the site appropriate.
Yeah, that and maybe some other issues. I mean, we could put on a future agenda a discussion of a committee and what a charge might be. Right now, the only thing that's before us is opening and closing the warrant and considering removing articles, but that's something we can add for the next meeting agenda if we want to take it up then and give some thought to it in the meantime, and pull some thoughts together and then have a discussion about a committee. Number one, whether we want to appoint a committee or not, and number two, if so, what the charge would be. Other than that, the warrant committee's made recommendations on a number of articles. I went to their meeting where they met with the chair of the planning board and the town planner. Some of these articles there's a public hearing scheduled for Thursday evening, so there's no recommendation at this time on a number of the articles, including the sign articles. And some of the townhouse development article and some of the other zoning articles. But we do have positive recommendations from the warrant committee on the water and sewer enterprise funds article, on the capital committee article, on the easements, on the eminent domain. So
They're all fine.
it's really just the trees and the 2 Swift Hat articles that, in talking with the chair of the warrant committee, that there was a possibility that we may remove 3 articles. I think he was in favor of that. So that's a question for the board. Do we want to remove 1, 2, or 3 articles?
Well,
Why don't we talk
Let's
about
get
the
the
trees
motion out there
article?
first. And
Do we
then-
want to remove the tree article? It sounds like we might have some agreement on that.
yeah, I'm in
Yes,
favor
yeah,
of that.
That's going to get done anyway, so sure.
I'm in favor of the
Okay.
tree, yeah.
We have a draft motion, which would be to open and close the warrant to remove 3 articles, but we need a sense of where the board's at on the other 2. Or if anyone would like to make a proposed motion.
We can just make the motion and take a vote on it.
Okay. Why don't-
Okay.
Do either
Or
of
at
you
least
want to
have
read the
discussion.
motion?
Yeah, I'll move to open the October special town meeting warrant to delete Article 5, tree removal, Article 18, Swift Hat House, and Article 19, transfer of park property to Board of Selectmen, and to close and approve the warrant.
Second for discussion.
Okay.
My vote will be a yes on Article 5 removal, and then I'll abstain from Article 18 and 19. You can vote on it.
I don't think you can.
Well,
I'll vote no on it.
Yeah, I mean, you can propose an amendment to the,
We make it two
Motion.
motions.
yeah, why don't you, do you want to propose a friendly amendment to just consider Article 5
by itself, and
by
then,
itself, and then to delete from that motion that Tom made the reference to Articles 18 and 19?
So moved.
You accept it as a
I'll
friendly
accept
amendment?
the friendly amendment.
Okay, so the motion that's before us is to remove, to open the October special town meeting warrant, to delete or remove Article 5, and to close and approve the warrant. Why don't we just say to, well, make a further friendly amendment to
Yeah.
reopen the October special town meeting warrant to remove Article
Yeah,
5?
and keep it open for now, yes.
So you're accepting that friendly
Yes, I
amendment?
am.
Okay, so that's the motion that's before us. Then any discussion on that, just to remove Article 5? Then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous.
And now I will make a motion to, it's already open, just to remove Article 18, Swift Hat House, and Article 19, transfer of park property to Board of Selectmen, and to close and approve the warrant.
I'll second it. Any discussion on this? I think I have a question for the town administrator. If we approve the warrant, we just got the copy tonight that has the report in it and the comments, and obviously those are the warrant committee's comment and reports, so we wouldn't have any discussion or comments on those.
Right.
The only issue would be the numbering of the articles, which we've already done. But two points. One is, we may want to move the eminent domain article up to be the first article so that it's taken on the first night, so that we can
Go to work immediately.
handle that one early, and then, if necessary, sign any paperwork that night, assuming town meeting approves that
I agree.
article.
I agree.
And then the other thing that Bill Clark, who stepped out of the room, had mentioned to us at a previous meeting is that there are some, I think he said people from Europe and Asia who are planning specialists, who, at the request of MIT or one of the planning
Yeah,
schools,
gonna
are
be good.
coming to town meeting to observe and listen to the discussion. And so the question might be, do we want to renumber some of these articles? Can we do that if we've already approved the warrant? Can we renumber it later so that we can work with Bill to put whatever zoning articles are appropriate for that group of people to hear together? I know that the moderator could take them out of order and just ask for a vote at the town meeting to take them out of order, but I just happened to think of that late this afternoon, that we might want to renumber some of these for that purpose.
Isn't everything else pretty much I mean, obviously, Article 1 is not.
1, 2, and 3
1,
are
2, 3 are
accounting.
not, yeah.
Actually, 4.
4.
4 is the library appointment to the capital committee.
Yep.
5 is the landfill access road.
Yeah, so it's not to get out. And then the zoning are all together, but they're in the middle right now.
Yeah, and I guess the question for Bill is, the room is reserved for what, Monday and Tuesday? The 20s, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, the 27th and 28th and the 30th of October. So we should probably find out what night the planning specialists are coming.
Coming, yeah.
Bill may not have that information now. If he doesn't, we probably leave it to the moderator to figure out at the beginning of the meeting. But I guess the
I
big
mean,
question
at least they're
for
all
us-
together at this point.
Yeah, right now, we have the eminent domain article as 16, so it would be the
We moved
last
that up
article.
to number 1.
So we could renumber it to move it up to number 1.
One, right.
The order of articles.
And then if you had to just take Articles 2 and 3 and just have the moderator move them back if you wanted to move the zoning articles up.
Okay, so it sounds like we want to move eminent domain up to be article number 1. And then do we want to then just renumber the rest of them so that the capital items is number 2, the water sewer fund is number 3, 4, we just renumber them?
Yeah.
And then we'll figure out the zoning with, and have the moderator get a motion to reorder them?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. So then with that question, any other discussion?
Well, no, we just have, so we're on the Swift hat and the Article 18 and 19, basically, right?
Yes, and approving the warrant.
And approving the warrant.
What would happen if you were to leave Article 18 in to accept the gift, but take Article 19 out to not transfer the land yet? Then you'd be accepting the gift.
No, I
You
thought
have no
that
place to
too.
put it,
Yeah.
but
that's-
at least we'd be accepting the gift,
Yeah.
assuming the
although-
town meeting approved it.
Although, wouldn't that raise the same number of questions that,
Probably. But then, worst case, it comes back to a study committee, or it comes back to the Board of Selectmen for further study. Well, I guess, two things could happen, three. It either gets approved, and we don't get it as a gift until he's ready, until Mike Roberts is ready to give it to us anyways,
well,
which I think is going to take a while, because he needs either a special permit or a zoning variance to build where he's at, so.
yeah, and keep in mind that the article, the way it's written, is to, doesn't it identify a
know.
specific location?
Does it, for the purpose of moving to that location?
Yeah, provided that said authorization is contingent upon the donor at no expense to the town transporting the building from said property and installing it on the town-owned property located at the east side of Wharf Street.
Yeah, and you can't do it.
So it has
Can't do
the
it.
current location, which is which we think is parkland.
Yeah, and regardless of whose land it is, it's just, I think the bigger deal is the history of the site, and
And what's the
Is it-
plan for
is
it?
it appropriate, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
good suggestion.
Right, that's all I have to say.
All right, then if no further discussion, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed?
No.
Okay, 2-1. All right, thank you. We now have some boards and committee appointments.
Okay,
Move to approve the appointment of Amy Dexter, Tom Hurley, Leroy Walker, Kevin Sorgi, Michael Hale, Ed Duffy, Chris Huban, and William Ritchie to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee to serve through August 2015.
second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll move to appoint Stephen O'Donnell, Brian Cheney, and Dudley Lane to the Historic Commission to serve through September 2015.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Town Administrators Report.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just wanted to let the board and the public know that the Norfolk County Register of Deeds, William O'Donnell, will be holding office hours at Town Hall on Wednesday, October 15th, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon in the Blue Conference Room.
Okay. Looks like next is a one-day liquor license for the Milton Arts Center.
I'll move to approve a one-day liquor license for the Milton Arts Center for a fundraising event that will take place October 5th, 2014, from 7 to 10 p.m. at 334 Edge Hill Road.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That one is unanimous. On to the Chair's report. 3 quick things. One is again, congratulations to 2 retired firefighters, Deputy Chief John Foley and firefighter Joe Garrity. All of us, the 3 members of the board and the town administrator, attended a very nice ceremony recognizing the retirement of the 2 firefighters a couple of weeks ago. And it was well attended and some very well-deserved recognition for 2 people who have served the fire department very well over the years. So congratulations to John and to Joe. We had, right before the start of tonight's meeting, we had a flag dedication ceremony in honor of former State Representative M. Joseph Manning. It was the occasion of his 90th birthday, and we dedicated a new flag in his honor at the town gazebo. Eddie Duffy, who's a member of the planning board, put the ceremony together, and it was very, very well attended. I think half the fire department was there. Chief Wells's wife, Lieutenant Pauline Wells, sang the national anthem, and a happy birthday to Joe Manning. And there were a lot of former town administrators, former Jeff Dambley, the former appraiser, former park commissioners, current park commissioners, Board of Assessors members, and just a lot of Representative Walter Timmelty, Representative Galvin, and several of Walter Timmelty's colleagues and Joe Manning's former colleagues from the State House came and attended, including Speaker Finneran. So it was a very nice ceremony, and congratulations to Joe Manning on his 90th birthday. And thank you to Paula Rizzi for always putting together very nice proclamations and letters for us to read on behalf of the board. And lastly, just wanted to mention, the board has received letters from a group known as the Friends of the Ullin Rink that raises questions about the town's contract with Curry College relating to the management of the skating rink. We are looking into issues that the letter raised. The initial contract between the town and the college was signed in 2010, before any member of the current board was elected and before the town administrator took office. So we have some due diligence to do, and we're looking into the issues. Once we have more complete information, we will address the issues at a future meeting. Next item is, does anyone else have a report to make? Anything to
report,
add?
Madam Chairperson?
No?
Citizen speak response. We didn't have a citizen speak tonight, but any
Yes,
previous?
not a citizen speak, but the Council on Aging report, I think, I think we have to look at those numbers a little more carefully, but, and I have no reason to believe that they're not true, that if we're not keeping pace, then, we're not the warrant committee, but to certainly support the Council on Aging, and I think we all do support the Council on Aging.
Yes.
But if we're in fact not keeping pace with other communities and not funding it properly, to look into trying to find a way to right a wrong.
Yeah, it's a small department, and it's always been one of the smallest budgets in town, and but it serves an important constituency and a growing constituency. So going into the next agenda item, which is future agenda items, we should probably put a discussion of the FY16 budget on the agenda.
Yes.
Fairly soon, along with a 5-year financial report that I know everyone's working very hard on. Not necessarily the next meeting, but one of the October meetings.
Yep.
I think we should have a discussion about the budget. And we have had other boards raise the question of an operating override in the spring. So we should probably begin the discussion of how the budget is shaping up, and at that time consider the Council on Aging issues and some other issues. Anything else for either citizen speak response or future agenda items? Okay, then if not, we have an executive session scheduled, but we also have a meeting of the Governor Stoughton trustees, so we will recess the Board of Selectmen meeting, assuming that's okay with the board.
Yeah.
Fine.
And convene a meeting of the trustees and we will return to the board meeting after we have a brief meeting of the Governor Stoughton trustees. So I'll convene a meeting of the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund. We have a request from Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, Milton, and I'm going to be recused on this one, so I will step outside, and you can let me know when you've acted on it.
So this is a motion to approve a grant to Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital to provide free medical care and support. Do we have the amount of this grant, or the amount that we've given in future?
In the past, you've given $5,000.
Okay.
And what are we giving now?
It will be up to our recommendation.
I think they're asking for 10, are they?
They've asked for 10, but in the past, you've given 5,000.
Okay.
How much is left in the fund?
I don't know the balance right now.
You have an approximation? Is it a couple of hundred?
It's more than that, I think. It's
Yeah.
but under 4, I think.
It is under 4. It's like mid-twos.
Mid-twos or mid-threes?
Yeah, no, I think it's only twos. Yeah.
Okay. So I read somewhere they're asking for 10, but we've given 5. Do you want to stay with the 5, Tom?
I think, yeah, I mean, given that we want to, you know, there isn't,
They always ask for the 10. You give 5 because you also give $5,000 donation to Partners Healthcare, which...
To what?
The Partners Healthcare.
Okay.
so I would,
Hold on with 5.
okay, so you want to move to,
Move to approve a grant of $5,000 to the Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, Milton, to provide free medical care and support for Milton's poor and disadvantaged.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous.
I'll say.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn the trustees of the Governor Stoughton Fund meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're back in session for the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and I will move that we have 2 combined motions here. I will move that we enter executive session to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, 0 Central Avenue, and to discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual, believing that having these conversations in open session would have a compromising effect on the bargaining position of the body, and to return to open session to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you. We are in executive session.